I would say for the last 20 years, the Christian right, though I usually would agree with their positions, I'm pro-life. In other words, that did not. I still don't think that same-sex marriage is a good idea for the country or people. So I would technically be agreeing with them, but you know how they raise their money for 20 years. They sent out letters talking about how you've got to send us money because the gay people are going to try to come and take your children away, and because they're evil, and because Democrats and the left are going to destroy your religious liberty. They just said awful things and vilified people. It's one of the reasons why so many gay activists now just don't want to forgive evangelicals, because when they had a little more power in the 80s and 90s, that's how they raised their money. That's how they got people out. And weirdly enough, that's not the Christian way at all. The Christian way at all is the way up is down. The way to rule is to serve. This is how Jesus did it. The way to get happy is to not think about your own happiness, but the happiness of others. The way to get any influence is to empty yourself and be a servant. That's Jesus' way. And they're not doing that. They're actually using the Nietzschean way. And I think what that did was by for a long time just keeping evangelicals frothing at the mouth about how everything is going so bad and making everybody so angry. By the way, things are getting bad for evangelicals. It's very possible. I am not in denial about the fact that 10 years from now, if you have evangelical convictions about sex and gender, you may not be able to work for a major university or for the government or for a big corporation. And it's not that Christians haven't faced that other places and in the past. We shouldn't be crybabies. Nevertheless, having said all that, we nurtured this, and Christian nationalists use that, and therefore we brought it on ourselves. Even though I agree with Perry and Whitehead that in many ways the Christian nationalists are kind of using us. Not so much we evangelicals are not all Christian nationalists, but they are using us. They're recruiting very well because we made a lot of our people recruitable.
Yeah, Tim, from a pastor's perspective, how do you begin to steer your congregation away from falling into the idolatry of Christian nationalism?
Yeah. Right now, there are a few churches that are smack in the middle. Most evangelical churches in the cities with a lot of young evangelicals almost have a tendency to be over woke and basically kind of taking their cues more from the secular world and actually talking about Christian nationalists in the most nasty ways. Mm-hmm. It is dangerous, but it's also it's one of the ways that you fuel extremism is by treating the extremists as sort of subhuman. And on the other hand, I'd say most evangelical churches away from cities, and especially in the South, a lot of them in the Midwest, they're unhappy because their minister isn't denouncing the left enough and isn't telling people they need to vote for Trump. So when I talk to evangelical pastors, people are actually leaving their churches either because they don't talk about justice and about how bad Trump is or how bad Christian nationalism. They're not preaching enough about it. They're actually just staying with a biblical text and very often not even mentioning it, just talking about Jesus and now you have to be born again. And I don't like that. On the other hand, I'd say probably a bigger number of evangelicals are mad at their ministers because they're not telling people how dangerous things are and you have to vote for Trump and we got to get behind this movement, and they're very upset and people are just walking away.